Today we're going to lay out a stacked Gore elbow using the manual method. The manual method is commonly used for 5-piece elbows. The reason being because it divides easily and we can get a working drawing by a simple process of bisecting. We'll see that a little later. What we want to build today is a 90-degree elbow. It's going to have a 7-inch diameter, a 7-inch throat radius, so it's a full throat elbow. It'll be 5 pieces. It's going to transition from big end to small end, from one end to the next. You'll have a 1/2-inch lap on the centerline seams and a 1/4-inch lap and spot on the Gore seams. Now, before we start making an elbow, we got to talk about the parts of the elbow and how they relate, and how do we come about finding the elbow angle? How do we find the miter angle? What is the miter angle? What is the miter rise? What is an end gore? What is a middle gore? These terms are important if we're going to build elbows. At any rate, to find the number of segments in an elbow, the very first thing we're going to do is take the number of pieces, times it by 2, and then minus 2. So if we had a 5-piece elbow, for example, times 2 is 10, minus 2 is 8, and a 5-piece elbow would have 8 segments. We'll bring that to light a little later on. Now, the miter angle, I simply take the elbow angle itself. In this case, it's a 90-degree elbow, and I divide the number of segments that we just figured out. Well, we had 8 segments on a 90-degree elbow, so 90 divide 8 is 11.25. That tells me I have a miter angle of 11.25. We'll talk about that when we start our demonstration as well. So, miter angle, elbow angle, the segments. One segment is identical to one end gore. Let's think of that as a stretch out. That would be without any allowances on it. So here's what an end gore looks like. And a middle gore is 2 end gores stacked back to back. So this is a middle gore, and if I was to draw a dotted line through here, you would see 2 end gores stacked back to back. Now, in order for me to build this 7-inch elbow, the first thing I'm going to do is lay out a working drawing. Now, I'm building this on the 3/8 scale. Put some glasses on. And on the 3/8 scale, first thing I'm going to do is mark my 7-inch throat. It's right here. And my 7-inch diameter. If I take and swing these arcs over a 90-degree quadrant, start to see what my elbow is going to look like. So let's just get that dialed in. And there I have a 90-degree arc looking after my 7-inch throat radius. That's where my throat is going to begin and end on this. And here now, is my heel. So that's basically an elevation view of our elbow, without the gores, of course. Now, if I have 90 degrees, and this is where the 5-piece elbow comes in so nice. If I have 90 degrees, and I bisect that 90 degrees, which is half a 90, 45, for that I can use my 45-degree triangle. I now have 2 45-degree elbows. Okay. Next, I'm going to bisect this 45. And if I bisect the 45, what's it going to give me? It is going to give me a 22 and a half. So, simply I'm going to swing an arc here, and from the other side of the 45, I'm going to swing an arc right there, and I now have 22 and a half degrees. Bring that back to my vertex, through my intersection point, and I have 22 and a half degrees. If I bisect this once more time, once again, all I need is to stretch out more than half of that, and here we go. I'll bisect this. There's my 22 and a half degrees. Bisected one more time, and that now is my 11 1/4 degree, half of 22. So half of 90, 45, half of 45, 22 1/2, half of 22 1/2 gives me my miter angle, 11.25 degrees. So I've just found that 11.25 degrees right here. 11.25 degrees. Now, it's very apparent this is why we use a 5 Gore elbow. 5 Gore elbow more commonly in the HVAC side of things. When they start getting into industrial blowpipe and whatnot, the elbow radius is increased, as well as the number of pieces. Check your specs. So now if I just come up 90 degrees from this diameter till I hit my miter point, and I come up 90 degrees from this diameter until I hit my miter point, I now have an 11 1/2 degree elevation view of an Gore. My working drawing. Next step on my working drawing is to find the midpoint and construct a profile. Now I am on my 7-inch round, and we are looking at 3/8 scale. That should be my midpoint. I'm going to change compasses here because that one was a little bit dull. Okay, so here's my diameter. And before I swing that, I'm going to double check, make sure I'm in the center, and I am. I'm going to swing this. I'll lean my compass just a little bit in the direction of travel so I don't slip. And there is a half profile of a 7-inch round at the end of our Gore. Now, I need to find the midpoint here, and I'm going to bring that down there. I'm also going to bring it right up to my miter line. There's my center line, seam height. Now, I'm going to double check my radius. Now I'm going to use this radius to divide my profile into 6 equal spaces. We always divide our round into 6 equal spaces, 12 on the whole circumference. If it's symmetrical, this is what I need right here. Now, I'm simply going to bring these lines up into my drawing. And what I've done is I have now shown where my 1/12 spacing, or my element lines, always lines 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 1 again, or 7. That's where they land on this working drawing. And this is the length that they are. Next thing I need to do is I'm going to stretch this out across a stretch out. 7 times pi is 22 inches. And I have laid out a 22-inch stretch out. Next thing I need to do is divide that stretch out into 12 equal spaces. Now, we may as well review that since we're here. Simply 12 equal spaces. I think I can do that on the 3/4. So from 0 to 12, I'll mark that in very lightly in case I lose it and have to come back to it. And I'm going to mark each point on this oblique line, and then when I construct perpendiculars, I will have my 7-inch stretch out divided into 12 equal spaces. This is only going to take a second, so bear with me. I don't know how high this elbow is going to stack, so I'm going to draw it up quite high. So I don't have to extend them. I lose accuracy when I have to start doing the lines twice. This is a very common procedure in parallel line development, dividing our circumference up into equal spaces and then using those equal spaces to locate the lengths of the element lines that we have developed in our working drawing. Now, in order for me to do that, my next step is to stretch these element lines through my pattern. There's one, there's another. Here's my seam height. If I'm going to get a fishtail pattern on an elbow, I have to have my seams on center. If these seams all lined up, I would end up with a straight piece of pipe. If I take the seams and I put one here and the next one on the other side, I get my elbow. Now, we've taken all our two lengths of our element lines, we've stretched them across a stretch out that has been broken up into 12 equal spaces. My next step is to locate my seam height right here. And here's where it starts. There's my first point on my seam. Now, I simply go 1 over 1 up, 1 over 1 up, 1 over 1 up. 1 over 1 down, over down, over down, over down, over down, over down. Oh, I'm at the bottom. Over up, over up, over up. And notice I end up on my seam height again. We have just developed the end gore of this elbow. Now, next step is to develop a middle gore. If I take a look at the 1/4 inch lap and spot on my gore seams, I will notice that I have a 5-piece elbow. So if I go 5 minus 1, that would mean is 4. That gives me 4 1/4 inch laps. This last gore does not get a lap seam on it. The other gores do. And if I want this to lap in order of my direction of airflow, I'm going to call this big end right now, and I'm going to work towards my small end. That way the laps will come from the small end over top, over top, over top, and finally over top of my big end, giving me the airflow direction and the laps that I require for that. Now, very simple. I am going to take my Centerline Rise, going to double it, but not quite yet. There is a Centerline Rise. Now I know that there are 2 Centerline Rises, or 2 end gores in one middle gore. So that marks one of the end gores, and you'll see it when I draw it here. Here I have almost 2 end gores stacked back to back. My next step is to add the lap that is required. I have to put a 1/4 inch lap for the lap and spot allowance on this next end gore, and in order to do that, I have to extend a 1/4 inch. So here's a 1/4 inch that I've extended. There's my 1/4 lap and spot added in. Next, I am going to add, there's a seam height. So here's how I'm going to develop my next gore. I'm going to take a seam height, I'm going to measure, there's my height, measure from the bottom, and I'm going to plot from the top. This is how I'm going to get my middle gore with the 1/4 inch lap allowance in. Next step is to measure from the bottom, plot from the top. Measure from my bottom, plot it from the top. Measure from the bottom, plot from the top. Once again, measure from the bottom, plot from the top. Measure from the bottom, and plot from the top. Have to be extra careful doing this first gore because we are going to utilize our first developed middle gore to transfer and get our second middle gore. So we develop our first middle gore very carefully, and then we are going to use that information to lay out the following 3 middle gores. It's always important to be as accurate as we can, but we really got to bear down in this instance. We want these arcs to be the same. It is very, very, very difficult to obtain a stacked gore elbow in the manual method and have your last gores look the same as your first ones did. Human error dictates that we're just not quite able to do that, and the reason is because we just can't be as accurate as we would like to be. I now have my second gore. And here you can see 2 end gores stacked back to back, giving me the middle gore concept, and my end gore here, which is my big end. I've added my 1/4 inch allowance in here. Next, I have to maintain this fishtail pattern. In order for me to maintain the fishtail pattern, what I need to do is next I'm going to take my middle gore dimension and that is my 1. And that is the height here. It's also the height here. And in reality, it is also the height of my 7 line. As this miter comes down, it meets up here again and comes back to here. 1, 7, 1, 1, and 7, and 1 again on my middle. And gore makes it happen. Now, we can see the symmetry a lot better. Here, if I take... Now remember, I have to maintain my fishtail pattern. So this is dimension, but I can't go here. I'm just going to get an offset pattern. So now what I have to do is take it across. And I also know that this height and this height are the same. Let's go to the next one. And now I can make an observation here. This point and this point are the same. So I come in 1 from here, and very carefully that point, and skip to this one. That is the same. Next is my middle, or my 4 or 10 point. This is the dead center of the heel, and it only has 1 point, and that is this one right here. Let's go to the other side. I've got my center here, now I'm going to start coming up. This is going to happen all over again, same thing. And that's why I put this middle mark on, because it tells me where these have to go. I know I put 1 here, and I know I have to put 1 here. Let's go to the next one. I know I have to put one here, and I know I have to put one here. And finally, this is the center line of my throat, and it is this long. We now have 1, 2, 3. This middle gore has the 1/4 inch allowance in it that is required. I'm going to do this one more time. This time, however, I don't have to go to the other side of the pattern. First thing we'll do is we'll take our 1 again, and we'll mark our 1, and our middle point again here, and our 1 here again, and now I can go the same thing. I'm going to use this carefully developed second gore, or first middle gore, to develop my pattern. I don't have to go here now to maintain that fishtail pattern. I'm going to go up to here, and I can mark it there, and I can mark it there. Laying out elbows is very repetitive. It's a lengthy process if we are using the manual method. Now let's face it, lots of folks out there don't understand and don't use the trigonometry the way that they could. We're going to do a lesson real soon on laying out this particular elbow using the trig method and the miter rise method. And what you're going to find is that once we know these methods, there's no elbow we can't lay out, regardless of its degree, regardless of how many elbow gores are in that elbow. I can make a 5-piece 26.7 degree elbow. I can make a 3-piece 32.4 degree elbow. I can make any elbow that is asked of me very simply by using sine, cos, and tan. In fact, it's mostly just tangent. Now, I have my 4 gores. Next step, my last gore. My last elbow gore has to have the small end allowance, it has to have the center line height, and it has to have the 1/4 inch allowance for the lapping spot, since it's all lapping this way towards the big end. So let's start with our centerline rise. And let's mark it here. To that centerline rise, I am going to add a 1/4 inch on my 3/8 scale. From my lapping spot, I'm just going to grab a triangle and extend this line, I guess close, but not quite close enough. With the stacked gore elbow like this, when we're doing it the manual method, we almost never get the same height between one guy and the next, and it's because of human error once again. I now need to add 1.5 inches for my small end bead and crimp allowance, and that is that. Now here's how we finish this. I bring that straight across, and we are done. I'm going to do that kind of lightly because my lapping spot's going to go here, and lightly here. Now, we have our elbow. Next thing to do is to mark where our finish line is on the small end. Super important that I get this finish line right. There's my finish line. This is the location where I have to compensate for my small end. Small end allowance means I need to subtract 1/8 of an inch from each side. Small end allowance is a 1/4 inch for materials that are 24 gauge and lighter, and after that we go to 7 times the material thickness, which would mean you may want to memorize your material thicknesses over the years. So here now is my finish line, tapering to the small end dimension at the finish line and then carrying on to the material line. Where it lands here, we don't care. We care about being small end at the finish line right there, small end. We now have a big end, small end elbow. There's my finish line. Here's my bead and crimp. This is 7-inch small end. And we need to add a 1/2-inch lap and spot to this now. So on my 3/8 scale once again. And I'm going to go perpendicular to that finish line. 1/2-inch lap and spot. And here we have perpendicular to that finish line, a 1/2-inch lap and spot. And I will connect that now. And there is our material edge. Let's darken all this in now. Not bad. There's my elbow. Now, next thing. Very, very important for me to understand that these elbows are tapering. These gores are tapering. This miter line has to fit with this miter line. So to make that happen, I'm just going to do this. 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4. Now, we also know that we have a 1/4 inch lap and spot. 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 And not on the big end. So we added our 1/4 inch here, we duplicated it here, we duplicated it here, added it onto the center line here before we put on our 7-inch small end allowance. Now, notching, very simple. I'm going to carry this arc through as if it was just going to continue on its way like this, and then I'm going to duplicate that same on the other side, and there's my notch. Once again, I'm going to carry this one here through to the material line, duplicate the notch. Carry this one through to the material line, duplicate the notch. Through to the material line, duplicate the notch. And there we have it. There's our elbows. A couple things that I would like to put on here that I always do, and this helps whoever's forming it for me. I like to put this on. This goes over, and this goes in. Goes over, goes in. Goes over, goes in. Now, if I'm turning this elbow in the shop and I know which goes over and which goes in, when I'm lapping this, on the goes over side, I can just show a little bit of the line. On the goes into side, I can hide the line ever so slightly, and it gives me a better advantage for turning the edge and making it fit nicely over top of its mate. We have a 1/2 inch lap and spot on our center line seams. 1/2 inch lap and spot. 1/2 inch lap and spot. 1/2 inch lap and spot. 1/2 lap and spot. There could be rolling instructions on here and whatever else you want to put on. And there you have it. This is the manual method of making a gored elbow.